Welcome, welcome, welcome to Wealth Strategies Unleashed with Concenture Wealth Management. I'm Robert Gilliland, and I just got to say thank you for joining us this week. This week we have with us
Karen Hyder.
You know, Karen, the last time that we did this, we started it off, and I had several clients call and say that they loved it. So I'm just kind of curious. Last time we started with a dad joke that you told. Do you have any new ones?
You know, I recently heard one that I still find is absolutely hilarious. I'm probably going to laugh myself once we tell this. Okay, give me a second to think of it. What side of the turkey has the most feathers?
I give up.
The outside. I think that's hilarious.
Well, Karen is a connoisseur of dad jokes.
Apparently so.
I don't quite know how to feel about that one, but I think it's really appropriate for us to start off with kind of something funny and joking, because we like to have fun. We like to have fun with our clients. And one of the things, we were meeting with a potential client, and they asked us this question that I thought was really, really insightful, was what should I expect? Right? And kind of going and thinking about it, I think that was a really valuable question. And so today, let's spend some time talking about what clients should expect from their relationship with the wealth manager.
Yeah, there's quite a few key things that I think are very important that should just be the bare minimum in a relationship with the financial advisor. To me, the most important one that I think we should start out with is the client should be at the complete focus and at the center of everything that advisor is doing. So when you're working with this advisor, you should feel that your interests are guiding every conversation, that it's very clear you are the most important thing and your interests come first in everything that's being offered and shown to you.
Yeah, I think that there's a relationship that's there, and they need to, you've got to spend a little bit of time, and that advisor needs to understand what's important to you.
Absolutely.
Right?
There's nothing more important and more tough to talk about sometimes than your money. So you absolutely have to have that level of trust with your advisor.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that I find interesting is that when we are talking with people and we ask them, when was the last time you talked to your advisor? And they say, oh, I don't know, 2022. So that consistent communication, that advisor being available to you, that advisor, going back to what you said about being client-centered, that it's not about a transaction. It is about what's important to you and helping you get to where you need to be. And when you go through, you've got to have this consistent communication with clients.
Well, and I feel like a good test of that we've heard over the years, if your advisor is calling you and you don't want to pick up the phone or you're declining that call, that should tell you how you feel about them. It should be consistent communication, and you should want to hear from your advisor and vice versa.
How many times a year do you think the advisor should be doing a thorough review with you? What's too much? What's not enough?
Bare minimum, it needs to be annually. I think you absolutely need to sit down, whether it's by Zoom these days or in person with them, and do a full review of everything of your situation, from your financial plan to your portfolio and your investments. But then I think in between that, it's hard. It's not a fast and easy hard rule. I think it is very much dependent on your needs and expectations. So for some clients, that might be quarterly in between the annual reviews. Sometimes it's semi-annually, and sometimes it's more frequent than quarterly. So I think it's about understanding with your advisor what you want and expect, and making sure that they are following through on that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that we learned, right? Was we did a survey of our clients, and what they came back with was, we're reaching out to them the right amount. They know at specific times we're going to reach out to them, and we're not just calling them, or we're not just doing these annual reviews to go through to do it. You can actually do annual reviews too much, right? But that kind of leads to making sure that if there are things that are happening inside of the market, they're taking care of it and communicating with you about those, right?
Yep. So market oversight is very important. I think there's a number of clients that we work with who will turn on the TV and hear something, or even at a cocktail party, you hear some statement from someone else that either makes you nervous or skittish in some ways. So I think having enough information given to you, the high level highlights of what's going on in the market is important, whether that's through a monthly newsletter or a video or a touch here and there to tell you. Updates every so often about what's going on in the market, I think, gives some peace of mind to clients, just knowing what to expect.
And clearly that in knowing what the big picture, what's happening inside of the market, you can't talk to them and say, hey, what'd the Fed do? And then not have an idea of what's happening inside of the economy or why the Fed's not doing that.
Exactly.
But it's also making sure that your portfolio is on track. There should be consistent communication aside from the annual reviews as to how your portfolio is doing. Hey, look, here's where we are. Remember, we've got this, and this is what this is designed to do. And that portfolio tracking and keeping them informed about how they're doing relative to what their goals are, which is most important.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. A lot of times I think people, when they think about people who are wealth managers, they think that it's about what the stock is. But the reality is it's really about, do we get from here to San Antonio safely and on time?
Exactly. And I think sometimes, too, in those conversations, it may not always be you need to call and have a conversation because a change needs to be had. I think it's important that in that consistent communication, sometimes the calls are just checking in, seeing how the family is, seeing how things are going, a big vacation that you know that they've just taken, or if you want to share that conversation of that vacation you took with your advisor. I think having a relationship that is not just your portfolio, but also you as a person and your family and what's important to you is very vital. And so sometimes the communication with your advisor can just be your advisor telling you, right now we don't need to make any changes. Here's what's going on in the market. Here's economically something that we've seen, but you're right on track. Nothing has changed and everything is going great.
I think it also, that relationship a client should expect from the advisor or from the firm they're working with, access. Access to information via an online portal.
Yes.
Ideally, that online portal pulls everything together. What you owe, which is as important as what you own. Strategies for being able to manage both of those. Get access through an online portal. Being available to communicate.
Well, and like you said, being able to see both sides of the balance sheet. So seeing everything that you have investment-wise, but also seeing what you owe all in one place, that you have a clear idea of your net worth day to day. So like you said, that access is crucial to have that information at your fingertips when you want it.
You know, and I think we've talked about, well, I know we've talked about annual reviews and doing a review at least once a year, probably twice a year, depending on how long the relationship's been going on, so that the client's comfortable. But there's one other thing that's vitally important to do at least once a year, and that is review the plan.
Yep.
Because as you're going through, generally speaking, the way that we do it is we always start at the basis of what are your goals, what are you trying to get to, what is the time frame, and how much risk are you willing to take. Then we can develop that strategy and come up with ideas and give you the information so you know what your probabilities are of success.
Exactly.
Right? But a lot of people go and do a plan. A lot of wealth managers go and do a plan, and they wait for a change, life change, retirement, a death, purchase of a new home, before they go back and revisit that. And I think that it's vital that at least once a year you touch base on where you are in that plan. Is there any significant changes? Are we on track?
Well, exactly, because the plan is not a create it one time and then leave it alone and never go back to it. The plan should be the basis of everything that's happening, because at the end of the day, the goal is not necessarily to outperform the market every year. The goal is to make sure that your goals are met and you're on track for everything you're trying to accomplish. So by starting with the plan and reviewing it every year, we ensure that we're not taking too much risk, or that we're taking enough risk so that your goals are in mind and we're on track to meet those.
You know, and I think the next piece of that a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to is, how do you tax manage that portfolio? No one likes paying taxes.
Nope.
And no one likes to have a surprise at the end of the year. So kind of talk about some of the things that advisor should be doing when it comes to the managing their tax situation.
I think the one that probably gets discussed the most is tax harvesting, so tax loss selling, and whether that be a strategy that's implemented throughout the year or in the fourth quarter of the year. But basically what that's doing is actually realizing losses that you have in the portfolio, and while losses are never good, they have an advantage in this strategy, but you go and you realize those losses to help offset those gains that you've seen earlier in the year, and by doing that, we bring down the tax burden on the portfolio. So one way to bring down your capital gains that you owe is offset your losses and your gains against each other.
So what's interesting about that is that it's kind of counterintuitive, right? Most people want to buy things that are really, really high, or either that or they're things that are really, really low or that they've losses on. Their plan is hope. And we all know hope is not a plan. If that thing just gets back to.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And so paying attention to it. But this is going to sound a little bit nerdy, so bear with me here. There's a thing called tax alpha. Now, alpha, what that means is that is where added return or added benefit is given to a portfolio. And what they have found is that by tax efficiently managing a portfolio, you can actually go and net return end up with adding between 1 and 1.75% average per year by managing that efficiently. Wow. So what does that mean? If I have a portfolio and I have capital gains, let's call it $100,000. Assume they're all long-term capital gains. I'm gonna have to scratch a check for $20,000. Okay, but if I tax, and so my net gain there is $80,000. But if I have a $100,000 gain and I go and I offset, that means my portfolio I had to take $20,000 out in order to do it. So I'm still up, but $20,000 is evaporated. But in the scenario where I've got $100,000 worth of gains and I'm owing taxes on $20,000, if I can offset that $100,000 by $10,000, now I just I've maintained, I still get to hold more money. Does that did it make sense the way I explained it?
Yeah.
It's okay to say no.
No, it did, yes.
And so what happens is that at the end of the game, a lot of people look at it in returns, right? 15%, 18%. At the end of the day, it's what's the total value of your portfolio? How much money do I have?
Exactly.
Right?
Net after you've paid your taxes and everything else.
That's right. And so by tax efficiently managing those assets, that tax alpha can make a huge difference, especially over time. So just to kind of rehash, things that clients should expect when working with a financial advisor, it's got to be about them.
Yep, be about them. So feel like you're the center of the relationship.
And that's important to utilize a fiduciary, someone who is legally obligated to operate in your best interest. Next is annual reviews.
Yep.
At least one a year.
Then consistent communication throughout the year in addition to those annual reviews.
And clearly they have to pay attention to the markets and how things are going.
Yep.
And also the one thing I would say on that is they have to be able to explain it so you understand.
Yes, take out all the financial jargon and just tell somebody what's happening in layman's terms.
They also need to be able to, when you call, be able to tell you where you are, how's the portfolio doing. They also need to give you access to be able to monitor and track that yourself. And the key on that is that if you have a great relationship with an advisor and something doesn't feel or look right, they should want you to call, right? Hey, this is a little bit risky, or hey, why are we having so much volatility? That advisor should listen to you, and if need be, make adjustments.
Yep. And then the big one, keeping taxes in mind and being very tax aware in how you're managing the portfolio.
And it has to, all of this is all encompassing of managing and monitoring the financial plan, updating that as you go along, not just doing it when you have to, doing it when along the way. Because, the rocket ship that went from Earth to the moon was in a constant state of adjustment.
Yep.
I forget the number. It was like this is probably low, 1 million different adjustments were made on that voyage, right? Same is true with your financial life. There's going to be a lot of adjustments, but you've got to be able to monitor and track that.
Yep, and course correct when needed.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you for joining us this week on Wealth Strategies Unleashed and the Karen Hyder Joke Hour.
Joke Factory.
And so with that, I'd like to say, Karen, thanks for doing this with us, and we'll see y'all next week.
See you next time.